Hello everyone and welcome to Grand Prix Atlanta 2012. It's round 11. It is time to get it on with the round 11 match between Morgan Chang and Brian Kibler. There's Morgan Chang, hugely improved grinder style player, been around the GP circuit, had his first Grand Prix top 8 last week in Vancouver. Congratulations to him there. Someone who's had rather more than one Grand Prix top 8 and indeed rather more than one Pro Tour top 8. And indeed, rather sickeningly, rather more than one Pro Tour title.
That's right.
Brian Kibler. Rich Hagan and Sheldon Menery in the booth with you, getting ready for round 11, and we are going to see some green-white action from Brian Kibler. We are going to see a lot of green action from Morgan Chang. That Magic the Gathering sign, currently obscured by his two hands, is shortly going to be obscured by many, 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 many elves.
If you were watching yesterday, we saw Ben Stark play his match. This is Brian Kibler's deck will bear a striking similarity to it. You'll see your Mothers of Runes. You'll see your Noble Hierarchs. Oozes, Pride Mages. Knight of the Reliquary is one of the cards that will get in for big damage. It's got Thalia, which slows down a lot of decks. I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure how the Belcher deck wins if Thalia is on the table.
A little awkward.
Chang's going first, cracks his Misty Rainforest right away. Oh, there's a Cradle right there. Do you say Gias or Gaias?
Gaias. Gias?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, we would consider the Earth Mother to be Gaia.
Yes.
We would also spell it differently, I think.
Gaia.
G-A-I-A.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nettle Sentinel up against Noble Hierarch. Although it's unlikely that either of those will ever be actually up against each other.
Right.
In the sense of tangling in the red zone.
Grib Ranger on the draw there for Chang, who is getting in with the Nettle Sentinel.
Yeah.
Of course, it's going to untap as soon as he casts something green. Second fetch. See Morgan playing there with the very, very techy unglued lands. And I'm going to have to welcome into the booth one Rashad Miller.
No one ever lets me do my Rich Hagan or Sheldon Menery impressions when I come in the booth. I should just sit down and just come out with it.
Feel free, sir.
It's too late. I wanted to trick everyone.
Oh,
Wait,
I see.
Now we have action.
Turn 2, Knight of the Reliquary for Kibler, facing down the Wirewood Symbiote and the Nettle Sentinel for Morgan Chang.
Morgan's setting up for a lot of action next time. Wirewood Symbiote enables quite a bit when it comes to replaying elves and untapping elves that usually tap for mana. So he's one mana producing creature shy of just going off. And he might attempt to do it right now with the Glimpse, hoping to draw into it with his several untapping creatures.
There is the Glimpse of Nature.
So he's going to play Quirion Ranger, which lets him untap a creature, and it also lets him effectively untap a land because he gets to return one and replay it. And he drew a Priest of Titania. He's turned it upside down so that he knows so that you know that he's used it for this time.
Oh, very good. There comes the forest back in.
And he's going to crop rotation. This is probably going to get a Guy's Cradle. Looks like maybe it's not. Did he already play his Guy's Cradle?
No.
Oh, this game? Okay, there's the Guy's Cradle.
So that's going to tap for 3 mana. I mean, I know you're usually on the elf side of the table over here, but if you're sitting on the other side of the table,
That's actually what I was thinking. What cards does Kibler have in his deck, you know, to interact with this? And I can think of Wasteland. Wasteland could get rid of the Guy's Cradle, but the Guy's Cradle isn't very, it isn't essential to this combo being effective.
it just speeds it up so.
Yeah, it just makes it so much more explosive. So a Elfish Visionary comes down, gets 2 cards, one for the Visionary trigger and one for the Glimpse of Nature trigger. I think he still has a green mana. 1, 2. I think he has 1 green mana left, unless I'm miscounting. If he does, then he's going to want to play that Llanowar Elf.
That could have gone way worse.
It looks like he didn't have it, so he's passing the turn. Now, he can also use both of these abilities, the Current Ranger and the Wireless Symbiote, on his opponent's turn, which, and there's the Wasteland that I was talking about earlier. He didn't, Kibler didn't even have to go get it with his Knight of the Reliquary. And he has another Wasteland in his hand. Not that there's going to be a lot of Gaia's Cradles hitting the battlefield. Second Noble Hierarch, that's going to give Kibler a little more mana and a little more damage next turn if he decides to attack.
But Kibler still needs 3 or 4 attacks at the least to get it, to have enough damage to kill Chang.
Yeah, and even now his attacks don't do any damage because Morgan Chang could just block with his Elvish Visionary and return it to his hand with his Wirewood Symbiote.
Right.
And next turn, we play in and draw a card, and he's, mitigating the damage and getting further ahead to draw more parts of his combo.
So, what's the Maverick deck's path to victory here?
Cards like, it seems like most green-white decks do have a way to interact with creature decks like this, but Kibler has 1 copy of Linvala in his main deck. So
He's got a cradle of his own.
So if he can find, he also, retroactively got his cradle. So any additional cradles from Morgan Chan would just be a strip mine or a wasteland on his own.
So a 2/3 Noble Hierarch getting in. Thalia slows the combo down a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, Thalia only stops non-creature spells.
Right.
So it will only make the Glimpse cost 1 more. And, because this is Elves. We're talking
Right,
about
'cause they
a
do it all
creature
with-
combo deck.
Right.
But every now and then, some of the win conditions are non-creatures. But I believe this deck just attacks you with all of its Elves. Oh, it has the Mirror Entity win.
Gerardo Fedal and his Charbelcher deck, we are getting reported, has won again. He moves to 10-1.
So Morgan Chan added 2 Llanowar Elves to the board. He really wants to hit a Heritage Druid? Heritage Druid plus Nettle Sentinel equals as much mana as you want, especially when you have a Kryn Ranger and a Elfish Visionary to kind of be a pseudo Glimpse of Nature mana engine.
I think I might have called that Queer End Ranger Scrib Ranger earlier.
Yeah, Scrib Ranger's the
Pro Blue.
the Pro Blue fairy version of this very card, and there is Linvala.
That's going to make things tough.
It stops even mana abilities.
Correct.
Which is unique as far as templating goes to, static effects that stop abilities.
Yeah, maybe Null Rod. I think Null Rod.
Yeah, Null Rod and Solitary, City of Solitude. And Abeyance. Those are the 3. No, I think Abeyance has been errated, or it doesn't do that anymore. But
yeah, Null Rod, definitely makes it do nothing.
Right. And Linvala makes creatures, you know, just power and toughness and attacks, and any static abilities. That's it. So Morgan Chang's going to have to do this the hard way with small creatures and attacking.
Damping Matrix, we know, turns off the activated abilities of artifacts and creatures unless they're main abilities.
Right.
So there's
I'm actually scanning through Morgan's deck, trying to find a way for the elf deck to win this, you know, in some efficient fashion. And there really isn't anything aside from playing a Regal Force somehow and, you know, attacking for 5 with it. But Kibler's going to be able to match him creature for creature as far as, you know, holding back a bunch of 1/1s.
right.
Brian Kibler can do that with all of his creatures while Linvala stifles Morgan's deck and attacks with her in the air. No interaction with Linvala game 1 from Morgan Chang in his deck.
Think Kibler has 3 lands in his graveyard. There might be a 4th.
There's at least one Wasteland
Yep.
and the Horizon Canopy.
Yeah, I think there's a 3rd one in there. So we knew Morgan had a window. Yep.
Yeah. Morgan, he really needed to hit one of his green tutor spells like a Green Sun Zenith, or, you know, draw a Heritage Druid off of all of those cards that he drew off of Glimpse Nature. And he didn't do that, and he didn't have any other mana elves, so he couldn't really get going aside from setting up for maybe next turn to
Right.
you know, get something going. So Kibler wins game 1.
So what's Morgan's sideboard plan look like?
Well, I'm looking at his sideboard, and he saw the Linvala, which means Umezawa's Jitte comes in. That gives him an out. If, you know, Linvala's in play, then you can at least equip Jitte,
Right.
Jitte on a creature and attack, and eventually be able to get rid of the Linvala. He doesn't have one in his main deck, so that's the only one that really can come in. There's also one Humility,
Yeah.
which interesting.
That seems a really techie choice.
And it doesn't really affect his. Well, it affects his game plan to an extent, but he can still play Glimpse, get a Cradle, play all his creatures, draw a card. And he has a bunch of 1/1s in play
Right.
that he can
He
win the
has-
game with against all of Kibler's 1/1s.
Right. He has way more 1/1s than you do. Kibler's.
He has another Linvala in his sideboard. That's probably has to come in because it's just you just win
Right.
when it's in play.
The rest of his sideboard, couple crop rotations, couple Tormod's Crypt, a Life from the Loam, 3 Path to Exile, a Sylvan Safekeeper, a Maze of Ith, a Bajuka Bog, an Armageddon, Choke, and an Aethersworn Canonist.
That last card's probably coming in. That's probably the only other card he's going to bring in this matchup. Possibly if he has dead cards, he'll bring in the crop rotations just to act as extra wastelands
To
for
go
the
get
guys
his Cradles.
to get Cradles or to actually get a wasteland. But Aethersworn Canonist basically turns off elf combo. One spell a turn, you can't combo off if you only play one spell a turn. And if Morgan Chen is blindsided by this and doesn't bring in anything to deal with artifacts, then, you know, he has to play one spell a turn. And when your one spell is a 1/1 and your opponent's one spell, you know, is 3/4 or 4/4 or 8/8, you lose that race.
Right. I think the only thing I see there is a Kasali Pride Mage.
Yeah, Elfish Sky Sweeper. It sounds like it does something to flying creatures, but unfortunately it wouldn't be able to use his ability to get rid of Linvala. Unless it has a enter the battlefield ability. We're going to look that one up really fast.
Sacrifice creature, destroy target creature with flying.
Yeah, that almost works. It has the spirit.
Yeah.
It tries, but it just can't make it happen. Linvala just says, nope, you can't use that ability either. It's probably in the deck to get rid of Grizzlebrands,
Right.
just so you have enough time to raise. Because one turn without a Grizzlebrand in play, and you're playing, you know, elf combo, you can race that. If they have to replay the Grizzlebrand, and the next turn, you know, you just go off, play Mirror Entity, and attack for a lot. Exactly a zillion.
All right, obviously Morgan Chang going to be on the play here. So he's going to, from turn 1, get it. What's the earliest turn that this deck can go off? Can it go off on 2?
This build can go off on 2. This build can go off on 2 because you can go turn 1, Nettle Sentinel turn 2, Cradle, Heritage Druid, and then Glimpse play a guy.
Right.
And then you're off to the races.
Right.
That's all it takes. There's some versions that can go off as early as turn 1, but then you have to play cards like Elder Spirit Guide
Right.
in order to get that extra mana that you need. This is an interesting hand that Morgan just drew. He has 2 land. One of them's a Cradle, and the other one is a Dryad Arbor.
Right.
So neither of those lands tap for mana turn 1.
Right.
But turn 2,
He's got a pile.
he's got so much mana. So much mana. Brian Kibler's going to mulligan. Maybe he sensed something from Morgan Chan, and he's going to aggressively mulligan to that wasteland. Maybe not. Brian Kibler's a pretty good player. And sometimes
Yeah, but that would be like an Obi-Wan kind of read.
Yeah, that one not as
Sure.
I mean, Brian Kibler's a good Magic player. He's not a sorcerer of any kind.
He's not an actual magician.
He's not an actual magician.
Because then his name would be like Mordor or something. But I'd make that read. I play against Cradle. I've played Cradle decks enough. And when you think about, a lot of the hands you think about are hands that are mana-light for one reason or another.
Right.
And not usually just the cards in your hand, the
Right.
cards your opponent can play. So like if you're playing against a red deck with an elf deck and your hand is 1 forest and a bunch of Llanowar elf type cards,
Right.
you think about that hand.
Right.
Because you don't know how long your elf is going to stay alive.
Right.
And against a deck that has a bunch of wastelands, when you look at your hand with 2 wastelandable lands,
Right.
one of them being God's Cradle, you think about that hand.
Bolt the bird.
Oh yeah,
Bolt the bird.
I'm in the Bolt the Bird club, mostly because I've been playing Llanowar elves and Fenhorn elves a lot, and they got bolted all the time. And there was never a situation where I was like, you know what, I'm fine with that. You bolted my elf. I'm okay with that.
As long as your land wasn't Thran Quarry, you're okay.
Oh, I tried to stay away from that card. Ooh, and we're going down to 6. We're going down to 5, Brian Kibler. I couldn't get a look
Yeah, I
at
didn't
his
see
hand
anything.
either.
But it was a.
It must have been
it was-
disgusting.
It was a snap call.
It was
He just
snap
back.
mo. I don't even think he looked at the 6th card. He just looked at the first 5 and was like, there's not another card that can make this keepable.
If I had 2 more extra turns,
Of course, Kibler here with up a game, so he has a game to give.
the turn I was about to, the turn before I was going to drop your entity with Cradle out.
I wonder if that played into his mulligan decisions.
Played against Blue Black Marco.
And really, even without even if whether he has the read or not, if he keeps it right now, the hands he keeps are going to be. There's a bigger range to the hands he keeps.
Right.
It's like 2 land, like a plains and a wasteland. He's probably going to keep that hand.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really good.
Couldn't win, he had 4 cards. and I couldn't
So,
win those
let's just see what he draws.
Forest Wasteland Hierarch would.
Yeah, that's definitely a keep. Like, Forest Wasteland is going to be a keep. But Plains, something else, maybe not. I think greens is really important for Brian Kibler's deck because it enables a lot of the cards. It enables the tutoring, it enables some of his mana fixing with Noble Hierarch. And the only cards that he can cast with just the Plains
They can block me.
is Thalia,
Right.
and we're looking at and Linvala, which costs 4. We're not really thinking about that guy. Turn to like turn 3, I guess.
How badly does Thalia slow down the elf deck?
Not at all, really.
Because right, we talked about
Yeah,
that earlier.
everything-
Because they're all creatures.
Yeah, they're all creatures. The only thing it makes cost 1 more is the
Glimpse.
glimpse. So you literally just need 1 more mana.
Right. Yeah. No, it's definitely not.
And there's the hand we were just talking about.
It's a savannah, so it's both the forest and the plains.
Yeah. But Morgan drew a forest, so he's out of trouble.
Yeah.
And there is Fenhorn Elves, the Ice Age functional reprint of Llanowar Elves, because you just can't get enough of those elves. And this is a Green Sun Zenith to 0, so he can go get his Dried Arbor.
Interesting.
That's a big play. That's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, in Modern, Green Sun Zenith was bad. Every green deck just played for Green Sun Zenith because at worst, turn 1, it's an effective mana whale, and later in the game it becomes more it just becomes more and more powerful. It's a Tarmogoyf, turn 3.
Right.
It's whatever you want, and I don't think that's what Modern was supposed to be. But Legacy, we're all fine with it.
Right. All right, Regal forces the draw there.
Attack for 1? No, just kidding.
Yeah, I looked. I almost thought that's what he was doing.
No, that hardly ever happens. So now we have land into 2 Birchflow Rangers, which is the poor man's Nettle Sentinel. Well, the poor man's Heritage Druid.
Right.
Because you tap 2 elves to get 1 green, or 1 mana of any color, actually. That's followed up with a Quirion Ranger, which allows him to replay his forest and untap one of his elves so that he can reuse the Birchflow Ranger's ability. So from there, he drew Elvish Visionary, and I don't know if Brian Kibler can smell what's cooking, but next turn, a Cradle's coming down and just tap him for 5. And from that 5 mana,
he's casted the Regal Force.
Morgan is going to draw 6 to 7 cards, if not more. Is that double Cradle in Morgan Chance?
Yep, it sure is. So I was just thinking, Cradle from Brian right here.
Yeah,
shuts Morgan off
for a turn.
For a turn, but I mean, obviously, he's not going to know about the keep. I mean, Brian Kibler has a Path to Exile in his hand. Is there any?
I mean, I guess the key card here would be the Quirion Ranger.
Right.
It enables a little bit. Actually, all of these cards are about equally as effective. The most effective cards are the Birchflow Rangers, but there are 2. Mm-hmm. And Path to Exile on one of those doesn't really do much. The Elvish Visionary is probably important to Path, but we know that there's a Regal Force in Morgan Chan's hand.
So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana available from dropping the Cradle, right?
Yeah, Cradle taps for 5 right now.
And plus, he's got the Forest.
So that's 6. But he can tap Llanowar, the Fenhorn Elves, and he has 1, 2, 3 mana from his creatures.
Right.
And he can untap one of his creatures with his Quirion Ranger and get a 4th mana by returning the forest. And there's a Path to Exile, I believe, on a Quirion Ranger.
On the Quirion Ranger, right. Well, I think that's the one, the Ranger's the one that does the most shenanigans, because if you can, I mean, especially if you could bounce it back to your hand and replay it, it's a different guy, so its ability can activate again.
Yeah. That's when things get crazy.
It's the symbiote that bounces it.
Yeah, that's thanks to Wireless Symbiote.
So you start bouncing symbiotes, and bouncing things with symbiotes and replaying them because you've got this pile of mana.
Right. And actually, when you do get the Mirror Entity in play, you can change your Wireless Symbiote into an elf, and then it can bounce itself. And then you basically you can generate infinite mana and cast infinite spells and attack for one creature can attack for infinite. Looks like we got a split sleeve.
2 split sleeves.
That Kibler. See, should be using my sleeves. Those sleeves are nice and strong.
And these budget sleeves.
I mean, usually legacy decks are really expensive. All the cards are like old. Yeah. Sometimes they're like pimped out with like foils and stuff. And you look at like Morgan Chan, and we got a bunch of common elves in play and some forests. So you don't have to spend that much on your sleeves.
That second forest is courtesy of the Path to Exile.
And here is the Cradle, and we're going to tap just enough to draw a bunch of cards. There's Regal Force. Legal Force is going to let him draw a card for each green creature he controls, and that's currently 5.
Oops.
See a bunch of land. I saw a Nettle Sentinel. Not a Nettle Sentinel, a Heritage Druid. And a Glimpse. And a Humility. So the Humility did come in. So
do you get to the point where you try to go off and you can't quite, but you've got a bunch in play, just drop the Humility anyway?
well, but right now, Brian Kibler just played a Knight of the Reliquary, so we might just drop the Humility first and then go off with Glimpse with Humility in play. Because you still get to draw the cards.
Right.
And you have a bunch of 1/1s. It's not really that far off from what you would have had.
And if
And Night Pearl poses an actual problem because it can get Wasteland for your guy's Cradle, and who knows what other lands are in Kibler's deck. There are a bunch of lands that can interact with this.
Why, you and I know what lands are in Brian Kibler's deck.
Yeah, we know, and there aren't very many other than Cradle or Wasteland that actually interact. But there could be. There could be a Tabernacle in Kibler's deck, which means that untap and you can go get a Tabernacle and then Wasteland the guy's Cradle, and all of Morgan Chang's creatures just go away because he won't be able to pay. He could pay half of those other keys, but we don't have to consider Tabernacle right now.
All right, so there's Nettle Sentinel.
Yep, we're under Glimpse, so we're drawing cards for all of these creatures. So I think the play is going to be play a bunch of creatures, go off as much as you can, then lay Humility afterwards. Because it's easier to go off if your creatures have abilities.
He can generate the white by via the Birchlore Rangers, tap in 2 elves, and 1 mana of any color.
The Heritage Druid just got targeted with a Path to Exile, so we're going to get another forest, and Heritage Druid is hitting the exiled zone.
When you're playing a combo deck like Morgan's that has a lot of steps in it, is it difficult to maintain focus? I mean, because you're running calculations and you're planning the next step based on what happened in this step. Is it difficult to stay on the play line?
I don't think that it is. Most of the time, you have a step. You have steps of things that need to be accomplished. Mostly, for most combo decks, is assembling the pieces and then functionally going through the engine. And whenever you're at the beginning, you're going, I need to get this piece, this piece, this piece. So that's really your goal.
Right.
And then once you assemble those pieces, then you're thinking, okay, how do I execute through the engine to get to my win condition, whatever your win condition may be. The only other things you really need to consider is how your opponent can interact with either your assembly of your pieces or the actual flow of your engine. Other than that, you're pretty much just locked in because once it's your turn, and you're really just in this bubble 90% of the time of this is what I need to do. I'm goldfishing. You're sitting in the goldfish, or you're playing against the goldfish. I don't know exactly how that term came about. If you're the goldfish, you're in the bowl, or if you're playing against the goldfish. I don't know why goldfish has magic cards.
I think you're playing against the goldfish. There's the Humility.
Yeah, there's
the scoop from Brian Kibler. While they're shuffling up, we'll give you some other results from the field. Brad Nelson has won his match. Conley Woods also has won his match in round 11, taking a very, very tight one from local Tampa player Robert Cohn. Todd Anderson has dropped his match and has gone to 0-2 on the day. Shaheen Sarani, who we just watched beat Todd Anderson, also loses now 1-1 on the day. Thanks to this crack staff for the results from the field.
Now, how many of these matches were Reanimator versus something else?
You have the little black book in front of you.
Oh, I was just going to look and say that they were all. Because I see Brad Nelson, he's playing Reanimator. Oh, no, he's not playing Reanimator. He's playing.
No, he's playing Rug Delver.
He's playing Rick Delver. So we have to check to see what Corvus is playing.
Yep.
I don't know what he's playing, but Collie Woods is playing Reanimator. Todd Adams is playing Reanimator.
Oh yeah, I was actually thinking the same thing.
We don't know who Shaheen is playing against. So this list is incomplete. We cannot answer that question. So I'm not even going to try
He's
anymore.
like a D10 or a D6.
Well, it's the responsible of the show's producer to assign the appropriate people to take care of the jobs.
Oh, I took the producer
And that
hat
turns
off
out
when
that
I
actually
sat
take
down
that
in this
to,
chair.
I would not hesitate to use that.
Now
See,
I
didn't you
understand.
see I changed hats?
You did not change hats.
I did.
You will not officially have a hat change today until you're wearing Mary Jacobson's hat.
It's too small.
I don't want to hear it.
It's too small. Did you hear that?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Well, I tried. You know, you ask, I try.
So, didn't look like Kibler went to the sideboard for anything different while being on the play in Game 3?
I don't think so. I was actually talking to Brian a little bit earlier today, and we were discussing how green-white decks of this fashion, yeah, sure, have been around in Legacy for a long time, and they always had the tools to be able to beat the decks that they want to beat.
Right. Don't you want to beat all of them?
Yeah, but it doesn't have enough. It doesn't have individual tools that could beat a bunch of decks.
Right.
But if you want to do well against Reanimator, there's a green and or white card that's going to do that. If you want to be able to beat High Tide,
Right.
there's a green and or white card that can beat that.
Right.
Now, if he wanted to beat Elves, there are a bunch of cards he could have had. You know, Eighth of Sworn Canonist is kind of a catch-all for this type of deck.
Right.
But it's really not the card that you want the most, because green decks can dispatch of artifacts rather
Right.
easily. What you really want is something like Limbala, which he does have one of, where it's a creature, and green decks have a hard time dealing with creatures.
Right.
So Brian Kibler only has the one Limbala and the one Eighth of Sworn Canonist, because that's how much he
No, he's got an extra Linval on the sideboard.
I was just talking about just in his sideboard. He has one in his main
In
deck
main,
also,
right.
so he has two in his deck swimming around right now. But and if you look at his sideboard, the only thing he put in his deck for combo decks is Ether Sworn Cannons.
Right.
And when he put this in his deck, he wasn't thinking, man, when I play Elves, this Ether Sworn Cannons is going to be so good. But you know what? It's good enough.
Right.
And he looks at his sideboard, he brings it in because it's going to affect the game in some way. But there's other green and white cards that you can use to beat an elf deck.
And looks like Morgan Chang is going to keep his hand. Looks like Brian Kibler is shipping his back to go to 6.
Yeah,
and again, it was a fast call on.
Morgan has a forest, at least.
Forest that he just flashed. Two
Yeah.
forests.
He has a bunch of land. He has 2 forests, 2 fetch lands. He has
Regal
a Wireless,
Force.
Regal Force, Wireless Symbiote, and a Heritage Druid. So not the most exciting
Right,
hand, but not the worst hand.
But a hand that's a turn or two slow enough to maybe mitigate Kibler mitigate the extra card on the mulligan.
Oh, we were still thinking about that hand, it looks like.
Oh.
So Morgan did not keep that, which it wasn't the best hand. He only had one piece of his combo.
Sure, I'm thinking about the timing.
No, he has until Brian Kibler actually. Morgan Chan has to decide on his mulligan before Brian Kibler
Decides on his
decided
next
his
one.
second.
Yeah.
So, we would have loved for them to both do that and both, shuffle at the same time, but it was kind of a difficult decision, and Morgan may have factored in,
Yeah.
Brian Kibler's mulliganing. Also, wait a minute, who's on the play?
Kibler.
Oh yeah, okay. So Brian Kibler's on the play. Brian Kibler's mulliganing is going to be at 6 cards.
Yep.
Is a 6-card hand going to be slow enough
Yep.
for me to either draw into something
Right.
relatively good with that 7-card hand, or actually just wrap up to Regal Force and draw like 3 or 4 cards off of it the hard way, like maybe turn 4 or turn 5.
How mulligan resistant is the elf combo deck?
It can work its way out of a mulligan with like an Elvish Visionary. You could do Elvish Visionary, Symbiote Shenanigans, and a Glimpse is on. If you have a Glimpse, like 2 land and a Glimpse and any creature or two, and you don't care that you mulliganed. Like that 5-card hand is probably a keeper.
See at least 2 lands in Kibler. There's a fetch land, there's a Caracas, there's a Jite.
There's a Linvala. That's the important one. And we both keep in our hands. So Morgan had a double. He has 2 fetch lands in his hand. He just drew the second one. He's probably going to get a forest because
There probably aren't too many islands in his deck.
no, I mean he has a couple of savannas, which he actually has 4 savannas in his deck, and
But he wants to be wasteland resistant.
yeah, actually he only has 2 savannas. I was looking at the other deck list. You do want to limit the amount of dual lands you fetch out because of wasteland. Wasteland is probably number 1 to your mana base.
Right. Although Brian Kibler's not playing any wastelands.
No, he's playing 4.
I guess that does say
Oh,
wasteland.
is this your first experience with Kiblerese?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, this is actually pretty good for Brian Kibler,
Okay.
and I am not exaggerating one bit. That is legible in terms of Kiblerese.
Kibler has peeled and played Fauna Shaman to go with his Caracas, which means Morgan Chang knows that there's a Linvala in his future. He doesn't specifically know that it's in Kibler's hand, but he knows that it's
Going to happen.
Yep.
And you kind of have to just assume that. I guess I always assume the worst at the beginning of a game. It's like they're going to
Yep.
get the cards that they need to beat me. Can I beat those cards?
Right.
Until you're in dire straits where it's like, well, it doesn't matter if you have the cards. You beat me. I have to just assume that he doesn't have them anymore.
Right.
Second land, Morgan Chan, and we still have some shuffling.
So out in the field, we have the report that Ben Friedman has won his match. He is gone to 9-2. Conley Woods, as we mentioned, already up. Alex Hahn defeating Gaudenis Vitigoris on table 2. So he's still only on 1 loss. Byron King of the living When We Were Big deck and Kenny Forrest at 1-1, and Tom Martell has dropped his match to Michael Major 2-0.
Back on Morgan's turn, he played 2 Nail Sentinels and a Wireless Symbiote. He has a crop rotation in his hand, along with a Regal Force. So we may see an explosion of cards and mana, which is basically the 2 pieces that you want for any combo deck.
Yeah, I think Kibler has a Path of Exile in his hand, so that symbiote may be not long.
Well, if it's going away, it's going to go away now. Doesn't look like it's going away. So there's a Pin Ranger. This is getting pretty sweet over on Morgan Chan's side. Symbiote allows him to use his Pin Ranger twice effectively. Pin Ranger allows Morgan to use his Land Elves twice effectively, and to use the 2 land that he has in play. He gets 1 more land drop without actually having a land. He's going to crop rotation for a Guy's Cradle, so he gets to put a Guy's Cradle into play without actually having to play it. He's going to be able to return his Pin Ranger to his hand with the Symbiote to untap Land Elf after he makes a mana, and then replay the Pin Ranger, which allows him to untap Land Ranger again.
It's like Kibler's going through doing some of the math himself.
He's actually doing exactly all that stuff that I just said in his head right now, and that's what it looks like. See, not only the elf player needs to do a lot of math, you both need to do the math. You both really need to understand where things are going and where everything's at.
So he's going to path. Symbiote seems like the dangerous
I think the
one.
Llanowar Elf is the most dangerous one, because that's right now the Symbiote If he passes it, it just gets used in response. If he passes the Llanowar elf, then he doesn't get a benefit from his current ranger from this turn. But he goes for the symbiote. So he goes for the symbiote, and there's no bounce and response. That probably would have been it. Oh, he can't path to exile any of the elves. What am I thinking? He has to do the symbiote. Because if he targets any of the elves, he just returns it with the symbiote.
Right.
He only had one target.
So like I said,
So like you said, you're right. As always, he only actually had one target. For all of the reasons that you said. I heard them.
thank you.
No, thank you.
No. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, upside down Quirion Ranger. It is not flipped.
It's not what are they called, flip cards?
Yeah,
It's not a flip card.
not a flip card.
It should be. It should be, a regular picture on the other side when he just lay it on the ground because he used.
There's the Regal Force. So he is going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Seems about right. Nope, he's drawing 4.
Find my land.
That emptied his hand, by the way.
Finish shuffling.
We get another land in play.
For now.
Right.
It's kind of the plan. So do we have any mana floating?
1, 2, 3. No, because he 5 and the 1 land for
We're
the
in 3
Regal
minutes,
Force.
really?
Plus 6.
I think Regal Force costs 7.
That's not that far. Okay. I thought that was that far. 3 minutes would be awful. Well, I think I benefit from that one.
Much easier for you to win.
Regal Force?
And now we're going to draw 4 cards because that Path to Exile was in response to the Enter the Battlefield trigger.
See, another Cradle,
And
Dryad Arbor. Didn't get the 2 on the bottom. Regal Force does indeed cost 7, 4, and 3 green. Oh,
We got a fistful of land.
that was a
Wait, and 1 creature.
right. That was a pretty weak draw for Morgan.
And this is a 17 land deck.
Wow.
No, I mean, not the deck with the least amount of land that we've seen on the camera, but
Kibler does not have a 3rd land drop.
I'm surprised. Oh, he used both of his mana to Path to Exile because
Yep.
he could have, went and got a Dryad Arbor
Yep.
at the end of the turn.
Looks like he's drawn another path. There's Birchlore Ranger, which we know Morgan pulled off the top. So he's got no card draw.
No card draw.
So he's just headed for the red zone.
Yeah, he's just attacking with those guys. But he's just 1 card draw off from effectively going off because Virtual Ranger plus 2 Nettle Sentinels equals mana, 1 mana for each green spell you play.
All right, with the Linvala in his hand, is there any value here for Kibler to activate Fauna Shaman once, so block, activate it Fauna Shaman once to get something, Dryad Arbor, and then path his own Fauna Shaman to get land number 3, drop the Dryad Arbor for land number 4, slam down the Linvala.
On turn 5?
No, on his next turn.
Well, the Dryad Arbor is going to have Summon Sickness.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, it would have been fine if he could have gotten his Dryad Arbor last turn,
Right.
and then he would have the 3rd land right now.
Right, and it would be active, right.
So right now, the path your own Fauna Shaman play is still fine, but you're hoping to draw a
4th land.
Yeah, 4th land. So
Oh, he's pitching the Linvala.
maybe we're pitching the Linvala plan. We're just
Is
done
that
with
the only
it.
creature he had in his hand, though? Because he might
I
be
think he also has a Knight of the Reliquary.
pitch the Linvala to get his other Linvala.
Well, I don't know if we're going to do that. I mean, it'd be cute. Like, look what I can do. But I feel like he doesn't want to play Linvala anymore, so maybe he is going to get a Dryad Arbor.
Awkward.
Take a look at your sideboard. That was a lovely rules change.
Oh.
Not gonna win.
What is it that he thinks that he had in his deck that he took out? We have to figure it out. Looks like he's gonna go get. Oh, we're getting Thalia. But what could he have been looking for? I hope he didn't actually. Maybe he was looking for Aether Sworn Cannons and he didn't bring it in.
Well, that would be a beating.
Oh, well, anyway, we goes for Thalia, which kind of serves a close purpose, you know, against most combo decks. But in this matchup, it's just going to be a 2/1 first striker, which stops, you know, Nettle Sentinels from attacking him.
So, Ben Stark and Orrin Beasley still battling it out at table 1. Owen Turtenwald
Might be an issue.
lost his last round. He is now 9-2 overall, and Brad Nelson has come through in winning his round 11 match.
So Brian drew Noble Hierarch and he plays it. So now he's up to three land. Finally, 3 mana sources. So a 4th one will allow him to play Jitte and attack, get some counters, and start wreaking havoc on, you know, all those 1/1s over there. Now Kibler doesn't know that Morgan Chang drew 4 land off of that Regal Force.
Right.
But we know that he did, and that he's 2 draw steps away from actually getting somewhere.
But it's going to be too late by then.
Ooh. Oh, I guess he was actually 1 draw step if you draw Elvish Visionary and then you get something really nice. Ooh, Path on the Kryn Ranger. See, now I think he wants to use it to get a mana in response. But I guess we don't want to do that. And he's not searching out. Was that Path to Exile or was it Source of Posture? Okay. Did we know that was on top or did we just not want to get a forest? Oh, he's only playing 4 forests. That's actually interesting. That's a light amount of forest for an elf deck. And he wants to play the Dryad Arbor. So he gets some mana for his Dryad Arbor this turn. It's like it isn't a creature that doesn't tap for mana. Thanks to Guy's Cradle. That's 5, 6, 7.
And there's the time in the round call. And there's the mirror entity.
And it looks like he's using the floating mana to activate it, and he's just going to attack. We're on the beatdown plan.
So Morgan Chang on turn 0.
Now, if he had the Wirewolf Symbiote, he would be able to do some naughty things with that Llanowar Elf. And, well, I guess he can only play infinite creatures. He needs to have something good. Oh, and we just scooped because he didn't draw the land. Kibler needed the 4th land so that he could use Jitte to get out of this situation.
So Morgan Chang takes round 11 off of Brian Kibler.
The guy in the blue shirt liked this match.